So first of all, thanks again, everybody. This is Taxed and Confused, Making Sense of Tariffs. This is going to be a live Q&A. We've got a great panel of experts for you today. So I'm going to start and get everything going. First, I'm going to talk about today's speakers. So first, we have Josh Fisher. He's the VP of Product here at Sin7. He's been leading product strategy with a very sharp focus on modern commerce, drawing on over 20 years of experience building e-commerce tools, back office features, and supply chain solutions. He's going to be your facilitator today, so any questions that come through, Josh will make sure to field those. Next up, we've got Dimitri Khan. Dimitri is the founder at Access Solutions, one of Sin7's partners. He is a digital solution architect with 18 years of experience in B2B and B2C environments. He's an expert in e-commerce, digital transformation, and systems integrations. And then I just want to give you a little information about Access Solutions. They help businesses scale up by providing them with consulting services, strategic approaches, and agile software development teams. Then we've got Matt Lynn. Matt is a senior inventory specialist at Accountfully, where he leverages his expertise in inventory systems and operations to support growing businesses. And then again, Accountfully is another Sin7 partner and a US-based accounting firm that helps growing businesses streamline bookkeeping, taxes, and inventory operations. And then we've got Patrick Frith. Patrick is in charge of global trade at Avalara. He helps businesses sell globally by creating automated tools that simplify tax compliance. He has over 20 years of experience in global trade and customs across EMEA, APAC, and North America. And he's a supply chain expert on a mission to cut through cross-border red tape for companies of all sizes. Patrick, I know you gave me that bio, but that is well said. He, again, works for Avalara, another Sin7 partner, and they help businesses stay tax compliant by automating sales tax calculations, filing, and reporting across over 90 countries right from their existing systems. So, having said all that, I am going to go ahead and get us started with some polls. These polls are just meant to help our panelists best understand where you're at, what your feelings are, where your head's at as it's associated with tariffs. So the first one, where are you in the world? Can you tell us where you're located? The poll should have popped up on your screen. Go ahead and take a second. Give you one more minute to get that filled out. Lots of you on the call, really happy you're here. All right, no surprise due to the time of day, but we have a lot of you in North America. We've got some in Europe and Asia Pacific. Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and launch another poll. The next one is about supplier switching concerns. So can you tell us, are you considering changing suppliers because of higher duties or delays? Go ahead and take a second.
Man, this is so neat.
It's fast, real time, lots of answers.
I wish we could just do this all the time. We just need a group of thousands of people that are willing and ready to give us insight.
Yeah. All right, it looks almost 50-50 on this one. Pretty split crowd in terms of supplier switching concerns. Just a few more, I promise. This will be very helpful as we move forward. So our next one is about manual cost recalculations. Do you know what your current COGS and margins are with the current tariff changes? And the answer can be no. That's totally fine. That's what we're here to talk about. All right, it looks like a lot of you aren't really sure, and that's totally fine, and we'll get into that today. Next, it's about tariff impact analysis. Could you quickly model how an incoming tariff change will affect your cost of goods sold and customer pricing? Could be yes, could be no, could be you don't even know where to start, and that would be fine too. Amazing. It looks like a lot of you are comfortable and familiar with this, so great to know. And then our last one, I told you where there wasn't that many. Bulk updates under pressure. Have you recently had to change prices to keep up with your changing costs due to tariffs?
Hmm.
Amazing. So it looks like a lot of you have, and that's good for us to know and just to have a good understanding. So now that I've gone through all of that, your quiz is over, I promise. I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Josh, but just so you have a good understanding today, we're going to talk about what's hitting your bottom line. We're going to talk about where SMBs typically get stuck and how Sin 7 can maybe help you pivot faster. And then we'll talk about how to plan ahead with tools, tactics, and smarter supply chain moves. So Josh, I'm going to hand it over to you. I think we're going to talk a little bit about the current landscape of things, and then we'll dive into some questions.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. First of all, I just want to thank you guys for joining us today. And I want to thank Matt, Patrick, and Dimitri for agreeing to do this. This was very last minute. We reached out to these guys. Obviously, I heard 20 years of experience over and over again. These guys have been in the business for a long time and have a lot of experience in this space. So hearing the details from them, I think our sincere hope is that you take information away from this today that you can educational information that you can apply to your business to help you through some of these times. So first of all, I think hopefully everybody's heart pressure went down a little bit this week because we had some news. Right before we jumped on, Patrick was giving us an update on some of the timelines and what this means exactly. And Patrick, that was great information. If you don't mind, could you just share what you shared with us around the timelines and what happened this week that changed things?
Sure. So the big change, Josh, was the 90-day pause imposed on products, the tariffs imposed on products from China and Hong Kong into the US. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, there was a tit for tat escalation between the two giants, sort of slugging it out. They were increasing by 10, 20, 30, 40%. It seemed like every day. And it got to 145% plus for China origin into the US. China reciprocated and increased their tariffs as well in the other direction. But yes, you're right. 90-day pause came into effect 1 minute past midnight yesterday. So we're on the clock. It doesn't mean to say this is over. You're right. The blood pressure has gone down, but yeah, it's not resolved. We know that. And let's not forget, the other 90-day pause, which began back in April for the reciprocal tariffs for all other countries, not China and Hong Kong, but all other countries. We're not even halfway through that 90-day pause. So July the 9th is when that pause, the reciprocal tariff pause, that comes to an end, and we're going to have to see where we're standing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to tell what's going to happen between now and then. And everybody's got their fingers crossed, hoping for the best. But, I'm sure everybody here has I've seen plenty of Reddit posts where people are, getting their invoices from items that they've brought in from China and the increases that they're already seeing in these spurts of time. It's obviously having an impact on business. So Patrick, while we're on this line, can you kind of help us understand, like, how did we get here?
Well, it really started at the beginning of the year, Josh, when the current US administration declared war on fentanyl and counterfeit goods coming into the country. So the response by the early February by the US administration was to increase tariffs to control this flow. And we had, if you remember, we had Liberation Day on the 2nd of April, where the reciprocal tariffs were declared. Prior to that, we even had Canada retaliating on some US origin products going over the border, going north into Canada. So there was a variety of different responses by different countries around the world. And then, of course, as I just mentioned a few moments ago, there was the heavyweight contest between China and the US as they increased the tariffs between the two countries. And we've culminated today. We're in this 90-day pause for both rest of the world and China and Hong Kong.
Yeah, but okay, but tariffs have actually been around forever, right? It's just the fact that we're experiencing a spike. Is that correct? Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about exactly what tariffs are and
Sure.
why
They've been around, you're right, they've been around centuries. And it's basically a way for, it's a number of things, but governments use it to mostly to protect domestic market, domestic industry. So to prevent foreign goods flooding the country and putting out of work the individuals within that country. So tariffs were put in place when a product enters a country, it is assessed and the duty is then determined and must be paid to the government before it's allowed to enter the country. But we have not seen anything as disruptive as this in living history. Some people compare it, they said, oh, well, Brexit, we had Brexit a few years ago. Brexit was nothing compared to this. Brexit was 3 years in the making. Everybody knew the changes. It was all very, very transparent. This is happening. This is like a roller coaster. This is happening over a period of weeks and in some case in days. Changes are made from day to day. So yeah, we've not seen anything like this in living memory.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy between this and Brexit. Okay, so this is my last fundamental question for you before we open it up to everybody. HS codes are incredibly important when it comes to calculating your expected tariffs. I know Avalara, you do a lot of work around HS codes. Can you just help define what HS codes are and what they mean to merchants?
Yeah, harmonized system codes. Basically, the HS code is the Rosetta Stone of global trade. It's a numeric code, which in the case of the US, it's 10 digits, and it identifies specifically what that product is. So whether it's footwear, whether it's textbooks, whether it's an engine part, every product has its own HS code. And that is, every country is different. That's what makes it confusing. Bolivia have got 12 digits. US, as I mentioned, 10 digits. Japan has 9 digits. Europe has 8 digits. So it becomes very, very confusing if you're shipping in and out of countries around the world because every country has a different code. So it is inextricably linked to the amount of duty that is paid on that product. So a HS code could have a duty rate of 0 because it's humanitarian or it's educational product. But it could be as high as we saw in the escalations. It could be as high as 145% last week when the escalations peaked. So it's the Rosetta Stone, and it's crucial to know what your HS codes are for your product catalogs.
Yeah. Okay. So now, for the folks that are watching, typically small to medium-sized businesses, they're selling products. Obviously, they're sourcing goods from around the world. Let's just go around the circle. Guys, tell me what kinds of changes these businesses should expect from everything that we're talking about around tariffs. What's ahead of them?
Well, I mean, I think from coming at it from a financial or an accounting standpoint, there's going to be a lot of volatility right now, not just with the tariffs, but with a lot of people racing to bring in new inventory. Potentially, you're going to see a lot of volatility in freight rates too. Increases in freight rates, increases in tariff have a direct impact on the landed cost of goods of these businesses and what they're selling. So what they can expect is to see those landed costs increase, hopefully decrease some over the near future. And it's really just getting an understanding behind that of, if my landed cost changes, how does that impact my business? And we're going to have to see a lot of modeling, a lot of financial projections being ran for people to stay ahead. Understanding if tariffs are a certain percentage and my freight goes up, how does that impact the cost of the units I'm selling, my cost of goods? From that, understanding what you sell that unit for, getting an idea of your margin. How is that margin impact changing over time? So we're going to see a lot of rise in people needing to get partners and projections and just understanding how when they're rising and even if they're falling again, how it's going to be impacting them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely. And that's, going back to the poll that we took earlier, modeling, I think 25% of the folks on the call, they made the comment they don't even know where to start. So help me understand, Matt, if you were going to build out a model to help you forecast the impacts that your business might face, how do you even do that? Where do you start?
Well, you kind of have to start with understanding what it is you're buying or you're producing. It's a lot simpler if you're buying a single finished product, understanding what is the price I'm paying to that overseas factory to produce that for me. It could be a little bit more granular if you're sourcing, if you're in a manufacturing operation and you have to source various products from various places around the world. Which of those products exactly are impacted by tariffs? So understanding the cost of your finished good that you're buying from that factory or the components you're buying to put together, and then how an increased tariff is going to increase that cost. If it's a finished good, it costs me $10, and my tariff rate goes up from $1 per unit to 10, my landed cost of goods is now $20. I've got to take that, compare it to how much I sell it for. If I sell it for $30, my margin is now $10 per unit. Can I absorb that into my business? Am I going to need to look to increase my prices and spread that across my consumers? It's going to be some very hard decisions that have to be made.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, actually, Dimitri, this kind of sets you up perfectly. So, Dimitri, you have a background in helping businesses with their back office operations and then how that relates to their customer-facing front ends, like the actual sales channels where they're engaging with customers. So, what do you see businesses doing when it comes to their selling motion to their customers? What are they changing that's being driven by some of these tariff issues?
Right now, it's all over the place. And this volatility drives both the price changes, inventory availability, different marketing responses. For example, I think 50% of the people in the poll responded they're considering new suppliers.
Mhm.
This is an opportunity that's for everyone here. Uh, your products need to be discoverable because there are lots of others. If there's 50% of us here considering new suppliers, probably 50% of people on the market are currently looking for new suppliers as well. If your product's not discoverable, then you're not going to be seizing that opportunity. Someone else might grab it. So being able to reflect pricing, actual inventory, which changes possibly day to day, as it was mentioned earlier, and having to deal with large volumes of data. And if you have multiple suppliers, you have to consolidate, aggregate all across the board. That's a lot of challenges. So some businesses are getting overwhelmed. So my recommendation here would be to invest into automation. And it doesn't necessarily mean putting a significant effort and going all in this. It's making small baby steps just to alleviate the immediate pain.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like, as Patrick pointed out, understanding the HS codes of your products incredibly important. Matt, you pointed out, you have to understand your COGS and your landed costs. Is there like a list of what I'm looking for are keywords that the listeners can jot down, and these are things that they can look into in their own businesses? Or is there a list of metrics that you would recommend that they pay close attention to in this time?
Yeah, I mean, some of your large metrics, just starting your landed cost. Now, what goes into that?
Mhm.
One phrase a lot of people probably can hear is FOB, the freight on board cost of the goods. It's what you're actually paying for the item that's coming in. Now, those HS codes and those tariff rates are based on that cost. It's not based on the selling cost or the selling price. That seems to be a pretty big misconception that's out in the market. It's actually based on the cost you're paying, not what you're charging your consumer. So you're going to look at your freight rate per unit, your duty or tariff cost per unit, and how that's going to impact it. And if you have any other overhead type costs directly that are going to increase that. So you want to look at your overall unit cost, your overall margin is a huge metric. And then otherwise, just your forecasting, your cash flow projections. A lot of CPG or some SMBs, they're running pretty tight cash and they're running pretty tight margins. So you want to understand how that impacts so you can plan for it. If we need, right now, we're in that 90-day pause. Maybe you need to take the cash that you have that you've been saving and buy up inventory, because we're not sure what's going to happen in 90 days. If those rates go back to 120, 130%, the cost of that just went a lot higher. So really just want to kind of keep a firm grasp on all of that.
Okay, and for everybody that's listening, like when the group talks about modeling, really what that means is just developing a spreadsheet where you have these metrics that Matt and others have shared, and you're just playing with the numbers. Like you don't know what's coming. You just need to forecast some possibilities and see what the end results are going to be. And you just go through multiple different scenarios of what could happen so that you can understand what is potentially going to happen to your business. You know, how is your cash flow going to be impacted? How is your revenue going to be impacted, and so on. So that's it may sound like a very complicated process, but from a business perspective, that's something that is actually relatively easy to do. And once you learn how to do it, you can do it all the time for so many different topics. Now, Dimitri said something that was really interesting. He talked about this as an opportunity to start analyzing the suppliers that you're working with. And it reminds me, a mentor told me years ago when we were going through the housing crisis. I remember him saying, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And basically, this is a very obviously a bad situation. That's why we're all here talking about it today. But as business leaders, um, you always have to look for the upside. So I'm curious to hear from everybody. Like, give me some positive things to be optimistic about. What are some upside opportunities that the business leaders here have?
Well, I would say I speak to customers just like yourself, Josh. I speak to customers and partners day in, day out. And the hot topic, obviously, in my line of work is tariffs. So I'm getting a feel for how businesses are reacting to this, and to your point, seizing it as an opportunity. So what one anecdote, if you will indulge me, it was Beauty Care, a company here in the US importing beauty finished goods, beauty products in from Asia, and have made the decision in these last few weeks. They know the uncertainty. They know things are never going to go back to where they were. There's going to be tariffs. They're going to be in place. So they've made that decision to invest in equipment, manufacturing equipment here in the US, where they will import raw materials from different origins, not just that one that they were having a problem with, that Asian origin they were having a problem with, but from different origins, using tariff engineering to keep those tariffs at a minimum and creating jobs and manufacturing here in the US the finished product for sale and distribution. So this has been their opportunity to change their model, bring it back to the US first and foremost, but secondly, it gives them the opportunity to spread that risk across other suppliers of these raw materials rather than importing the finished good into the US. So they're already committed, and that, I think that's a good thing. That's a healthy thing for a business to do, to look at it and say, okay, let's change it up.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so learning how to model out financials and forecasting, that's a win. Being critical of the suppliers that you're relying on today, and then hopefully finding better suppliers or more cost-effective suppliers, that's a potential win. So, and these are things that businesses probably think about all the time. Unfortunately, their arms being twisted into doing it now, right? So I guess that's a win. Dimitri, you mentioned automations earlier. So obviously, everybody that's listening, hopefully they'll take this away, and now they have some work to do to help them arrange the business. Help me understand, this is unplanned work, right? So, from a product perspective, that's how I would look at it. I didn't see this coming, and now I have to fit it into my schedule. What are some automations that they can do to make their life easier?
There is a very wide spectrum depending on where you fit in this digital maturity. If you are really early on, it's almost like a great God-given opportunity to start doing it, finally. It's almost like COVID all over again, just for businesses. Because I know that during COVID, lots of people who were working on pen and paper, and literally very successful businesses running like that for decades, had to shift at least to Google Sheets and start doing some things electronically, right? That actually added a significant degree of operational stability. They actually could start using the remote resources, access to remote staff. They could start hiring remotely because they could start using those digital assets to collaborate. So we're kind of going through the same thing here. If you're early in your digital transformation, maybe it's even things like Zapier. So there are lots of inexpensive connectors and automation platforms that are really meant for consumers, costing sometimes a couple dozen dollars a month. Could go into a couple $100s a month, and they're extremely capable. And now with AI being built into those platforms, you can do really significant things just within the platform. If you don't know how to do it, not a problem, because there's a whole lot of consultants out there on platforms like Upwork, and I'm sure people like Matt, they know how to do it, and they can give you that nudge in the right direction. Then you could go up a little bit, and if you're already on Sin 7, for example, you could start building better real-time or near real-time integrations between your multiple systems so that your accounting visibility, your inventory visibility, all of those things are tied together, right? One of the things, I heard a story from somebody who had their tariff charges going up like roughly 10 times. And that was actually a bone-crushing experience for the business, really hit their margins.
Yeah.
So having that visibility, knowing how to prepare for that is crucial, right? So building middleware, which is a fancy term for basically a little piece of software that sits as a connector in between two different or more platforms and allows you to quickly transform the data and take it from one system, put it into another, so that people like Matt, again, can run those reports. Your CFO, your VP of procurement can have real-time visibility. We're running low on stock. We're tight on cash, things like that. And there is also a little bit of this genie in the bottle with AI, right? Some of the things we're doing right now, there could be one-time events or they're unpredictable. And it only makes sense to automate a recurring need. So if you're not sure if it makes sense to invest into full-scale automation, you could use AI to sort of semi-automate it. For example, if you're not an Excel genius, but you need to build a complex formula, AI will help you do that just based on the verbal description of what you're trying to do. So consider all of those different opportunities and ask for help, quite importantly.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The comment about AI is really relevant. So like even in the last couple of weeks, I've been having a lot of conversations with ChatGPT about this topic, and it's gotten to the point it's really good at giving you up-to-date news so you can find out exactly what's going on. But then also like actually this is a question for everybody. Like I didn't know, where do you even go to get information? Like obviously you can watch the news, but the news is only going to tell you the headlines and like what you need to understand. Like give me the numbers. Like where do I go to find the HS codes? Where do I go to understand the percentages associated with the different HS codes? Where are there data sets that are available to merchants? Like what are your favorite sources? For this is for anybody.
I could start with that, and this ties to a question already asked by Alan in the Q&A. So the place where we source our content from is government bulletins, executive orders, customs bulletins that are released by countries, and in those bulletins, they detail the HS codes that are impacted and the subsequent duty that will be applied to those HS codes. Remember, there's 20,000 HS codes, so they're very, very extensive. So, of course, you could read all the executive orders, you could read all the customs bulletins yourself. You'd probably get into a bit of a muddle because there's a lot of information. But at Avalara, that's what we do. We consume that content and we turn it into software. So you enter your HS code, you enter your country of origin, you enter your country of destination, and we will present to you the accurate duties and tariffs to be paid on that particular product. And we update our system. So at 1 minute past midnight, when an executive order comes into an effect here in the US, our content is updated. So it's real time. It all happens in real time. So those are the two ways. You can do it yourself by reading all the government releases, or you can just use simple software.
Yeah. Yeah, Okay, so that's really great to know. And I'm sure that, a smart, technically minded person could use AI to try to take their, if you had 100,000 SKUs in your database, like just having the intern fill in the HS codes is a slightly unrealistic task, right? But there's probably AI tools that can help you do that either through manual steps, or I think, Avalara offers solutions like this that can fill everything in for you. But the root of that advice is that your data, having your data in your source of truth around all of your products is incredibly important. And the more prepared people were, let's say back in November, the more prepared they were with appropriate data inside the system about all of their product, the better situation that they're going to be in right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so go ahead and prepare yourself for the next one because the world's changing mile a minute. Okay, so let me see if there's any other questions that
Josh, I was just going to bring up, there are 2 questions sitting in the wing, but I just want to remind everybody, if there are other questions, you can go ahead and add them to the Q&A. One
Okay.
question that came up that I think is a good level set and just a good reminder that we are breaking everything down. So no question is a bad question. Please keep them coming. But one question that came in is, what is tariff engineering?
Yeah, so tariff engineering is it's been around a while, but it's become even more important recently. It's where you, as a buyer, where you you have tools to allow you to investigate the products and their HS codes, and you can change the country of origin to see the impact that it will have when it arrives into the US. Remember, all countries, there's free trade agreements, there's punitive rates, there's retaliatory rates, there's all of these things going on at the moment. So by acquiring that particular HS code, that product from Vietnam versus New Zealand, you may get a preferential duty rate, a legitimate preferential duty rate. So buyers, procurement teams, purchasers, manufacturers who are importing raw materials, they are using tariff engineering to work out, A, can I acquire this product from this particular country? And B, what will be the duty rate? What is the relationship between the US and that country? And do I get a preferential duty rate, therefore reducing my costs? So that is in summary what tariff engineering is.
Great. So Matt and Dimitri, you guys work hand in hand with businesses just like the ones that are on this call right now. Do you guys have examples of mistakes that you're seeing some of these businesses make that we should advise others to avoid?
I mean, I think from a an overall standpoint, trying to take everything on yourself can be a huge mistake. There are experts, there are consultants in so many fields, from the accounting standpoint, pure accounting, to financial and cash flow projections and modeling, to where maybe like Dimitri said, you're not great at Excel, and you want to have somebody bring someone on who can kind of help build that out for you so you have an understanding. So I think being afraid to ask for help. And from the accounting standpoint, I think it's not properly accounting for it. Maybe you're not really sure, and you're kind of doing just cash-based accounting. You're just expensing immediately to your P&L those big tariff charges as they come in, instead of baking it into the value of your inventory and expensing it over time as you sell those goods. It's going to have an immediate impact to that month when that happens. You're out that cash, your margins are going to take a really big hit one month. So it's just understanding how everything plays together, and finding those that can help you. Just make sure you're on the right path.
Yeah, that's great. I 100% agree with that. Ask for help. That's the bottom line whenever you're in this kind of jam. One thing that I learned through talking to customers is, customers pointed out the fact that if you're doing average cost accounting, basically it's hard to see how your costs are being impacted by these different tariffs. So, if you have a $10 item and that you typically sell at $10, and now there's a tariff associated with it that's going to increase the cost for you to get that good. If you were typically selling that item at $20, now selling it at $20 may leave you with no or negative margin in some cases. So you have to be very conscious of what kind of price adjustments you should be making and how that impacts the forecasts for the future. So what about you, Dimitri? Do you have any good examples?
I'd say not investing in the data quality. Um, Talking about data is generally kind of a buzzword, a little too abstract. But realistically, this is just the raw information that all of your reporting and all of your business decisions is going to be based on. So this is really a wake-up call because the rapid response, the ability to make good decisions quickly, having the optics into what's going on in your business is crucial. So I see people kind of going on two different parts of the spectrum, either not doing anything at all because they're overwhelmed or going all in and a little too quickly. And you can get a little too far ahead of yourself, especially with automation. Because if we're talking automation, it's not cheap and it takes a while to implement. But sometimes it's being perceived as kind of a magical solution. The reality, though, is automation only does what you're already doing, just at a scale and more efficiently. So you want to start with the business goals in mind and walk backwards. Identify what's going to be the biggest bang for the buck, also what's going to be the quickest, because you don't want to wait for something for 6 months. And take a structured, logical approach. I know it's difficult, but take a deep breath and plan it out.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, the other thing with automations is a lot of times they're replacing tasks that are being completed by humans that are relatively redundant and monotonous, and there's no human value for that particular task. And yes, it may take time to get the automation working properly, and it may be costly to get it up and running. But imagine what you can do with those human resources if you can just let a machine take care of these tasks. Like humans are meant to be the creative ones, the ones that are, building relationships with the market and understanding the products and building relationships with the suppliers and so on. Let the humans do that and use these tools that have been built for the automation parts. Okay.
As a matter of fact, that's a great opportunity to start paying extra attention to your customers. So your salespeople, instead of sending out the spreadsheets and taking those midnight emails, right? Talk to your customers, call them down, speak to your suppliers, potentially figure out a plan to work, a better, more viable financial model for your relationship. So people are afraid of AI. It's a known fact, but reality is AI cannot treat you to steak dinner. And it's the relationships that really matter, the reliability of all of those supply chain relationships that are the decision-making factor oftentimes. So
Yeah.
it's to be embraced, not to be afraid of.
Okay, Lauren, I'm afraid of running out of time and not
Yeah, and we've
getting
got loads of questions coming in at this point, and so I would
great.
love to start picking all of your brains. One question that just came in, and I already mentioned that. Well, the question was, is there any other webinars or content or any other resources that you would recommend that this particular audience watch or be aware of, not just exclusively with tariffs, but is there anything specific to inventory or supply that they should be following? Of course, I put in there we are going to be sending out an email after this with this recording with other resources from Sin 7, but I wanted to leave it to all of you. Anything else that you would call out that's valuable for our attendees to know?
Avalara, we do free of charge. We do a weekly webinar on Tuesdays, and you just have to sign up, your name, your company details, this, that, and the other. And we're on air every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, and we run through for 45 minutes the changes that have happened in the last 7 days and the implications. So people, you folks, members of the Sin 7 community are more than welcome to join.
That's great. That's great.
I'll
Dimitri,
say, Lauren, I'll send you the sign up form so you can include it in the post webinar dispatch.
how about you, Dimitri and Matt? Like, do you have any favorite blogs or favorite resources?
I love B2B e-commerce association. They're kind of 50-50 split between the practitioners and consultants, but there's a lot of good advice. And also, if you're thinking about automation, it will help you get the perspective of the other side. so you can work more efficiently with your consultants.
Got it. That's great.
Yeah, honestly, end up looking for podcasts related to it. Spent a lot of time on LinkedIn finding that at Accountfully. Our CEO and owner kind of helps lead some of those podcasts and talk about that. So really, it's just looking at the information online and kind of picking and choosing what seems interesting and relevant to listen to.
Yeah. Recently I found it's a YouTube video with a retired expert in supply chain management, specifically focused on container logics or logistics. And he's talking about all the open source tools that you can use to see the ships that are leaving China and they're on the way to the US, one of the ports. You can see the information about the ships. And he said that, right now in the news, there's a lot of talk about empty ports and basically there's a lot of fear from a consumer's perspective that we're going to run out of retail items. But he pointed out if you actually look at the open source data, you can actually see all these ships that are still moving around. It's the typical volatility. Maybe there's a spike or a drop one week, but it's nothing. And so I've been watching that once a week just to kind of check in and get a pulse on the reality of it. And I guess those are open source tools that anybody has access to as well. So you can kind of see the flow of goods across the ocean. Lauren, maybe what we should do is after this, we should put together a Google Doc with a list of resources. We can ping more experts in our community,
Sure.
and then we can share that Google Doc with the audience.
Yeah, you'll all be receiving some follow-up emails, but Matt, Patrick, Dimitri, I'll reach out to you individually, and Josh, we can figure out any other experts we want to include, and I'm happy to share that with everyone here.
Awesome.
I know that we had a 45-minute mark on this webinar, so if you have to drop, totally understood, but there are a couple other questions in here. If the team wants to peek at them, you should have access in the Q&A. There are some people who are just looking for just some guidance and maybe your personal opinion. So as comfortably as you're willing to share on this next 90-day reprieve, how confident are you that it will hold? Do you have any opinions on that?
Well, on that one, of course, safe harbor and all the rest of it. This is just an opinion. I don't have a hotline to the White House, so I don't know for certain. But I would have thought that the rest of the world 90 days, the one that was announced first, which expires in July, I would expect that one to hold. Too many countries are impacted by that. I expect there'll be a rush of deals done before that expires. So that one I think will hold. The US-China one, the latest one that started yesterday, we're going to have to see how talks go between those two heavyweights. So, that one, I'm less certain of, I suppose, in terms of, will it see the 90 days? We all hope so, but anything, as we know, anything can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to get super political, but it's obvious that this is being used as a bargaining chip. And, the world knows that this is going to have a negative impact on the actual citizens. And my hope would be that, these bargaining chips are just used for power plays, and hopefully we can come to some kind of resolution before, before these extreme tariffs get put into place. I'm not in a panic state, but that's my nature. But I knowing what's happened over history in the last 8 years, like anything's possible.
Yeah, for sure.
That might be, and I hate to say this because I do know that there are other questions here. That might be a good way to end this, is just saying anything is possible. And hopefully we can, in this conversation, prepare you a little bit for what you should be thinking about as we enter even just these next 90 days. I do see that we have a fair amount of questions left unanswered. Please understand, we see these, we will track these. If your question wasn't answered live, we will follow up with you individually. And Dimitri, Patrick, Matt, Josh, I'll share these with all of you. I'll also work on getting all of you a resource list so you can have access to that, and anything else that Sin7 can do, that Avalara, Accountfully, Access Solutions can do. We are in your corner. We know that this is kind of a chaotic feeling time. So we are here to try and minimize that as much as we can with the power that we have. So having said that, Josh, anybody else? I know you can see the questions before we drop. Is there anything you want to address right now?
The only thing I would say is I'm reading the questions now. These are great and relevant questions. So why don't we answer these, but answer them publicly? So unless somebody has something that's specific to your business, let's answer these publicly and just get these answers out to the entire community. And if you found this helpful today, either those of you in the live webinar, or hopefully we're going to post this somewhere that others can get to it. If you found this helpful, tell us, because this panel, we have a lot of experts in our ecosystem, and we can keep doing this if it's beneficial to you. Based on the questions that are coming in, it seems beneficial. Just tell us.
Definitely. I'll share this with the resources, these questions that are listed, so everyone can see these as well.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I would just encourage anyone, if there are outstanding questions, or if you're not confident with what's going on, landed cost modeling, please feel free to reach out to any of us. We would be happy to have those conversations privately, via email, whatever, to see if there's a way that your business can be helped, and we can help you get a better understanding on how to just really navigate these times.
Yeah. Great point.
Well, thank you all for being a part of this webinar, and for everyone asking questions. Again, this is a really relevant topic. We all need to get through this together and talk through this together. So thank you all for being a part of it. Matt, Patrick, Dimitri, Josh, thank you so much for talking to this and helping lead this conversation. And we will share all of this with all of you watching very soon. Any other questions, you can please feel free to email marketing@sin7.com. If you think of something later today, that will link you directly to me, and I'm happy to help you there. But thank you all so much. We really appreciate your time, and we will share this all soon.
Yeah, thanks for
Great.
doing this,
Thank
guys.
you.